Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Matthew X. Joseph, and I am excited to be here today as one of the panelists talking about the secrets of classroom management. Thank you to Hire for reaching out and asking me to be part of this amazing panel. And I'm going to share a few strategies with you today to add on to this conversation. I'm going to do that by also giving you some resources to support some of these ideas and to support you both within your classroom and within a school or district setting. So I'm going to switch and share my screen here. And I really want you to take some of this in. This is myself. How are you? Matthew Joseph. I am from Massachusetts. I am the Curriculum and Instruction Director here in Leicester, Massachusetts. And I really want to talk about a few things today and focus on three. I want to talk about, when we talk about classroom management, I want to talk about expectations, and I want to talk about communication of those expectations and being consistent. And that is where the focus of my portion of this discussion is going to be about. I also would love for you to share some of the learning today. Share it on Twitter at Matthew X Joseph, on Instagram or LinkedIn. I have a few books that I'd like to give away, and I really want to see what resonated with you, because that'll help me to inform my practice as well. So I look forward to seeing some of your learning today during this session. So I think it's important to talk about lenses. And the reason is I'm going to be talking to you today from someone who went to Springfield College to earn my elementary degree. I went back to Pittsfield, where I went to high school and taught 3rd and 5th grade. But from there, I went on to have district leadership experiences. I was a principal in 2 districts, in Attleboro Public Schools and in Natick Public Schools. At that point, I had an opportunity to also attend Boston College to earn my educational doctorate degree in leadership, and then had 2 stops in district leadership. So that's the lens that I'm going to talk to you about. So I'm going to start by talking about relationships, because students learn for someone, not just from someone. And I would tell this to my staff over and over, that when we're talking about classroom management, we're not managing anything. We're building relationships to enhance the learning experience. So today I'm going to talk about expectations versus rules. And what I mean by that is we talk too much about what we shouldn't do. And those are rules, essentially, because instead of making a list of things that students should not do, let students be a part of creating those classroom expectations. Have them have ownership in what they're doing. So when I think about rules, especially when I see them in classrooms, they're essentially a list of things you don't want kids to do. Don't run, don't be late, make sure you keep your hands, don't touch other people's things. So I think sometimes we fill our room in the beginning of the year, or we fill our classroom space with rules, with things that students can look at, and it's your room. But essentially leave those walls blank, so that students can feel that the room is theirs. It's a collective classroom. And it gets away from you, your rules, and your classroom. So I look at expectations, because when we talk about expectations, it actually communicates the desired behavior. It communicates the mindset of positive into the classroom, and it creates ownership for students, talking about what it is expected of them. Not what are your rules as the teacher or the principal. These are the expectations for students. Because when I think about expectations, think about these in your classroom. Think about these in your school. What are the age-appropriate expectations for students? Because some expectations may be different for kindergartners than in 8th grade. Think about what character traits that you want from your students, and also what are the essential expectations for the class. Because if you have 40 expectations, it just becomes a list. A few expectations that are age appropriate that you want to focus on this year in your classroom. So here are a few examples. Again, you may use these, or they may not fit, but I want to give you an example of when I'm talking about expectations versus rules. So for example, being prompt. Talk about what that means. Be ready to learn when you come into class. This is what is expected of you. I don't want to say don't be late. Well, talk about the positive side for that. Be prepared. Have the materials ready for the due date, not don't hand work in late. Be polite and positive, be productive, be a problem solver. These are active words where students feel that they are part of the solution in your classroom, that there's active engagement, the onus of responsibility is on them, and it's intrinsic motivation that's going to get them there. We did this in Boston College as a dissertation group. I wrote my dissertation with a few other people, and we set expectations on ourselves. We wanted to make sure we were on time, we were consistent, make sure we were finishing meetings on time, and also with action steps. My favorite is the last one. It really breathes life into what we are doing. We're going to have fun and take names doing it. So not only do students have expectations, as a principal, and this is why I shared my lens, I want our educators to have expectations as well, because when you model what you want students to do, they are going to see it and they're going to be more excited and enthusiastic to do it. For example, if you're an educator, communicate this to your students, that I trust you until you give me a reason not to. I'm going to respect you and your work with you to solve problems and work with you to solve problems. I'll promptly correct and offer you feedback, and I'll work with you to meet learning goals. You are telling them this is what you put on yourself. I'm giving myself to you. These are the expectations I have on myself. And I think when students see that, they will quickly see that you are modeling the behavior you want from them. So when you talk about expectations for your students, they are seeing this as well. Because when you communicate expectations, students know what to expect. When students don't know what to expect, they're like, what's going to happen today? Is she going to come in this way, or he's going to come in that way? Are they going to think this of me? Because when the expectations are out there, you can step back as a teacher or as a principal, and students or staff can monitor themselves and take responsibility for their own behavior. They're not breaking a rule, they're not meeting expectations. And that's very different. We're talking about classroom management, that you want to set that tone. When you say that and you set expectations, students are going to spend more time on the task, not worrying about the rules, but trying to reach the expectation. And it's easier to recognize when someone is reaching the expectation. When someone is living up to the expectations, reaching the high expectations that you put on them, you can communicate as a teacher, you can communicate as a building leader when somebody is following that. And then when you do recognize it, it's rooted in data. When you can call out an expectation that somebody reaches, one, it shows that the expectations mean something, and two, it shows that you recognized it and see it. The second piece. Now, expectations are fabulous. You should have them, and it's important, but also should be consistent in your classroom for every student, in your school for every student and every teacher. Because if one classroom allows students to wear hats, now I'm in the hat classroom. And then it's the expectation that in the next class, that's something you can't do. Now students are confused. Has to be consistent expectations in classrooms, because when you have that consistency from teacher to teacher, it becomes a culture. And that's where we're trying to get to when we talk about classroom management, is we're creating a culture of what we do. We do that with educational standards and expectations, right? This is where we want students to be by the end of 3rd grade, 10th grade, by graduation. Why should we not do the same for behavioral expectations? Also, when we have those expectations, students know what's expected of them throughout the day. It takes the guessing out of it. It takes in this class I can do this classroom I can do that. And they can be more confident, engaged, and connected. Isn't that what we want? We want students to feel that connection. And when they have ownership in the expectations, they can do that. It also makes it easier for teachers to recognize positive behaviors and have an opportunity to connect problems when they're just starting out. We talk about our students. The book that I wrote, The Culture of Us, it's about our collective success as a school, as a classroom. And when you have consistency, Then you could recognize it. If a student who may not be in your class, who may not even be in your grade, is reaching the expectations, you can praise them. If you see a student that is not on your caseload, who may be veering away from expectations, you can address it because it's consistent expectations throughout. It also takes away the opportunity for students to divide and conquer. Well, for this teacher, I'm going to do this. Well, I'm going to go to this teacher and I'm going to ask these questions. And students know faster than anybody when there is consistency. They will find out after a few tries of the divide and conquer that we have consistent expectations, that our classroom management is this. This is our culture because we set it and we follow through. And that's where consistency is critical. And the last piece I want to share is about communication. So you have your expectations. They are consistent throughout the classroom, grade level, school, district. But then how do you talk about that? How do you make that part of what you do? Because having your stakeholders, having all your teachers, students involved is a critical last component. So there's a lot of words here, but I share this with you because I want you to have this. But the biggest thing I want to talk about is share this wherever you can. Post it on your school website. Post it weekly on social media. Have handouts. Make sure all students have it. Make sure all parents have it. Post the expectations, not just in one place. I recommend posting some of the specific expectations in the desired areas you want to make sure students continually to remember. Cafeteria, bathrooms, classroom, even within a classroom, if there's different stations, different expectations, not different from one another, but one expectation for centers versus an expectation for whole group. So make sure they are posted where you need it. Make sure it's in the handbook as well. And make sure that you read them and explain it to students. For me, I'd love to stay connected. I am passionate about this work. I thank Hire for allowing me to be part of talking about classroom management, but looking at it from a district school lens to support you and in the classroom, because these strategies and ideas are universal. They can be in small group, they can be in classroom, they can be in grade level, school, district. I also want to learn. As I said at the top, I work in a school district supporting leaders, supporting teachers, so I want to learn from you too. I also want to give away some books, so stay connected, post on social media. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you found this helpful. No matter where we are when we start our school year, setting these expectations, having that consistency, and having that communication will be universal no matter where you are educating students this year.